Come on, let's be positive. Just stop right there. No negativity. Let's be positive. LBP, let's be positive.
Yeah, sorry,
Oh, hey, let's be positive, mate. Let's be positive. Okay. Where do I start? Okay, let's be positive. Dave Rennie's laughing. That's one positive we can take out of that, Matt.
Dave Rennie is absolutely loving life. And I was just thinking to myself this morning, reading through some of the reaction, which isn't good, that Dave Rennie's 38% winning record over his 3 years looks pretty good now, doesn't it? Looks solid now. Against our one game in 8, and that being against Georgia that we've won this year under Eddie Jones. I mean, it couldn't get any worse, could it?
No, I don't think. Actually, it can, because Portugal was so close to getting a win over Georgia, and that would have been their first ever World Cup win, but they got World Cup wins. I mean, come on, Portugal. Step it up against the worst Wallabies side I have seen in my lifetime. There, I'll say that. Worst ever.
Well, I'm not even sure anyone will want to play that game. Who's actually going to run out there? I mean, we get news this morning that apparently Eddie Jones had an interview with Japan before the start of the World Cup campaign. Now, whether or not that turns out to be true is mind-blowing, but it wouldn't surprise me. The day Australian rugby was broken, death knell, nightmare, in tatters, embarrassing, boys against men. All words that I've read this morning, and I've got to tell you that sums up exactly where Australian rugby is. Absolutely nowhere. And when you're trying to compete against a game like the NRL for fans and supporters and people to fill stadiums, what's Australian rugby going to do to make the turnaround worth people paying to go and watch? Because at the moment, I mean, it's hard to sit through a game, let alone pay to go and see it.
Matt, I reckon that this should be a legitimate complaint to Fair Go, because what it is it's some guy that's come around. You know, you're getting your house built at the moment. He's come around and said, oh, yeah, look, I'll do the driveway there. I'll put some posts in here. We'll build a deck there. I'm just going to need an $85,000 cash deposit. Actually, don't make a deposit. Bring that to me in cash, actually. And then, of course, you know, the first week a truck comes and they dump some shingle on your driveway, and then a week later, you're wondering why they haven't turned up again, and then in 2 months' time, you can't get hold of the guy, and before you know it, he's skipped. That's Eddie Jones, mate, isn't it? That right there is Eddie Jones.
Well, that's pretty much what he's delivered. He's delivered absolutely nothing. He hasn't even dug the hole. He's just arrived.
Yeah.
He's walked around on site.
Yep.
You know, he's had a measuring tape in his hand. He's took some dimensions. He's figured out how much he can scam out of you. And then he's done a runner. That's it. He's found someone else down south to go and work for, whilst you wait for nothing.
Nothing. That's
nothing.
He's given, mate. Apart from a few good press conferences, which is on our side of the microphone, we like. And I was seriously hoping that he would turn up to today's one with the shirt unbuttoned again, down to the gut and the big white collar, but he didn't actually. He was a little more conservative. But all he's done is blag, mate. And in the end, that balloon gets pricked and there's nothing else. The only difference with this coaching tenure for Eddie is this happened in the very first year, because normally this stuff doesn't happen till after 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, it's pretty sad, isn't it?
It's just a recurring pattern, mate. That's all it is. And you know, what's that definition of insanity? Doing the same thing over and over and again. You know, and look, but I bought it. I got to put my hand up. I bought the BS. He had me completely fooled again, and I've ended up with a week's timeshare in Upper Hutt as a result, mate, for the rest of my life.
Well, it didn't take much to do the convincing, did it? Because they looked okay in moments against a couple of sides, the Springboks, the All Blacks and the Argentinians, but they couldn't beat them at all. They couldn't compete for 80 minutes, and still we thought, well, maybe they are getting better. Maybe there's a few moments where we might be all right. But again today, can't hang on to the ball. We're 15 seconds into the game, and they've given up a penalty for an infringement at the breakdown, which is really their downfall at the moment. They can't scrummage without giving penalties away. And then within 3 minutes, Wales score a pretty good try that just made the Wallabies turn tail and head home. It didn't even look like they wanted to be there. They played like a bunch of children.
Yeah, they did, mate.
Without skill, without direction. I mean, I don't know what the game plan was, but I couldn't work out whether they had one or not.
No, kick it up in the air, mate. Kick it up in the air, kick it away. Yeah, it's out of the All Blacks playbook. All right. Well, we've got a couple of other things to talk about. I want to actually mention the fact that New Zealand Rugby have now invested into a Black Ferns 15, just like the All Blacks 15. Another big waste of absolute money in terms of no one turns up, nobody cares, there's no interest in it, but you're ticking woke boxes and you're fulfilling.
They're ticking boxes. They're ticking boxes. I mean, there was a bit of momentum. There was a bit of momentum for the game, but it didn't continue, did it? And unfortunately, for whatever reason that is, Martin, it didn't.
No.
The World Cup was good.
Yeah.
Everyone jumped on board. You know, they had some good crowds, but it just stopped. It stopped. People didn't continue to go.
What it's done is it's just gone back to what it was, and it's the same with New Zealand women's football. I mean, and again, you know, this is no criticism. It's just a reality. Out of nowhere, you've got this huge big spike of interest because it's a World Cup. What you've actually got to do as an administration is figure out why that has happened, who is watching, how to get those same people back watching your domestic product. And none of these questions were answered at the time, and none of them are still being answered. And that's why we're now back to where we were a year ago, which is with a sport, which is an amateur sport, trying to be a professional sport. But unfortunately, no one's coming into the shop to buy the jeans, mate. So how long do you keep the shop open?
Well, you can't continue to hold stock if no one wants to pay for it. It doesn't work that way.
No.
The people that you bought it from want their money. You give them money. You've got no money. Then you have to go broke and sell them cheap. Look, unfortunately, or fortunately, or whatever it is, people don't necessarily want to fill stadiums out for these women's games at the moment. Now, I'm not trying to be sexist here. I've said before, there's enough women in the world to sell out women's sports, but it doesn't happen. Now, for whatever reason that is, and I'll tell you what, the other thing I think probably plays a bit of a role in it is we're all told all the time how good it is and how much we should support it. And I think that's the wrong way to go about it. It's almost a shaming tactic. You should go along and watch them because they deserve as much money as everyone else. The problem is just like the jean shop or the coffee shop, if there's no customers, unfortunately, whether or not you deserve to get paid, you won't get paid. And until it can be turned around and it becomes a real thing on its own, I'm a bit sick of being told I should be interested.
That's exactly. I couldn't say it any better.
Unfortunately, I'm not that interested because I'm being told I should be. And it doesn't work.
Let's turn our attention finally to the forward pass. And I've been harping on about this all season, mate. It is the scourge of the NRL. No, it didn't cost the Warriors. Yes, it ended the game, those two ridiculous forward passes for that try that made it 30-12. But the NRL, what are you bozos up to? You know, this is the worst use of technology since football in the 2010 World Cup in South Africa saw an England goal go 5 feet over the goal line and spin and bounce out again, but they had no goal line technology and the ref wasn't aware of it, and so they didn't actually tell him. But those forward passes, you've got a lino standing there. You've got the guy in the tightest pair of kids' shorts that has ever refereed a game. Jared Sutton doesn't see it. The bunker knows it. The big screen knows it. Everyone knows it, but no one's allowed to say so. How silly is it?
They have doctors now watching footage, and they'll get a player off the ground if they deem it worthy minutes after a head injury clash or an incident. And yet you can have a try like this scored, which as soon as it was thrown, you knew it was forward.
Oh.
But it can't be reviewed. They can't call back a forward pass. And not only that, there were two of them. And Penrith scored one off a forward pass the other night too. No, the Warriors probably weren't good enough to win. But at the time that try was scored, it was 24-12, Martin. The Warriors, you must remember, had missed 3 conversion attempts or 3 kicks. So it could have been 24-18 and it could have been the difference. That's the problem I have. Not that it was in the end, because the Warriors weren't up to the task. But in moments like that on a big stage, it's embarrassing to not be able to rule on it properly. And for all the things that they go and look at, if there's an incident on the try line, they'll often go back for 2 or 3 phases before the actual try and check it out. But you can't pick up a forward pass like that. I think it's crazy.
Finally then, Ireland versus South Africa, and we've talked about this most of the show, of course. I mean, what an incredibly intense test match that was. Did we see a preview of the final? Are both of these teams making the final?
Well, I think they might be. Absolutely. I mean, I enjoyed that match the other morning. It was a tough game. It was a proper game of rugby. Ireland, to me, though, They look like they're the full package.
Yeah.
Because South Africa are big, they're strong, they're fast. They've shown plenty of skill this year. And to be honest, I don't watch as much Northern Hemisphere rugby regularly as I do the Southern Hemisphere rugby. So I haven't seen as much of Ireland, but watching it the other day, that would be a tremendous final. You couldn't ask for much more.
Well, I don't think either team is fearing anyone else that they're playing, are they? I mean, you've got to contest and you've got to be physical enough to be able to match those two teams. And I'm looking at our All Black side and going, I don't think that we actually have the players with the bulk and the power to do that.
No, I don't think so. And infringing and lack of discipline and just little mistakes against Ireland and South Africa won't get you done. And I think that we're going to get a preview of it. I think Italy are a strong team like those two, and let's just look forward to this weekend when the All Blacks struggle against Italy.